Hare Krishna. How about you, Tathagat? Okay. You know how to close those for me? Those curtains? Not difficult. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mishnapad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Tata Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Tata Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Thank you. Okay. All right. Om Namo, Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamadidiyet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavatyuttama shloke Bhaktim bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 20th day of June, 2026 in San Diego, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, HG Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are reading the 10th canto, the Summum Bonum, Chapter 1, The Advent of Lord Krishna, Introduction, text 33 to 35, and we'll chant 35 together. Okay, I'll just read 33 and 34 myself. Shankaturiya mridhangascha nedu dundu bayaksamam prayana prakrame tata vadavadvo sumangalam. O beloved son, Maharaj Parikshit, when the bride and bridegroom were ready to start, conch shells, bugles, drums, and kettle drums all vibrated in concert for their auspicious departure. Okay, just to fill you in on the details here, the bride is Devaki, and the bridegroom is Vasudev. And the driver of the chariot was her brother, meaning cousin, cousin brother, Kaṁsa, who took the driver of the chariot, and he was ready to go. And there's no purport. Pati pragrahinam kangsam abhyasyaha shariyad bak asyastvam ashtamo garbho hanta yam vahase buddha. While Kaṁsa, controlling the reins of the horses, was driving the chariot along the way, an unembodied voice addressed him. "You foolish rascal! The 8th child of the woman you are carrying will kill you." Purport. The omen... Wait, that was 34, right? Okay, so there's a little purport which I'll read. The omen spoke of Ashtamo Garbha, referring to the 8th pregnancy, but did not clearly say whether the child was to be a son or a daughter. Even if Kaṁsa were to see that the 8th child of Devaki was a daughter, he should have no doubt that the 8th child was to kill him. According to the Vishwakosh dictionary, the word Garbha means fetus, and also Arbaka, or child. Kaṁsa was affectionate toward his sister, and therefore he had become the chariot driver to carry her and his brother-in-law to their home. The demigods, however, did not want Kaṁsa to be affectionate toward Devaki, and therefore, from an unseen position, they encouraged Kaṁsa to offend her. Moreover, the 6 sons of Marichi had been cursed to take birth from the womb of Devaki, and upon being killed by Kaṁsa, they would be delivered. When Devaki understood that Kaṁsa would be killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead who would appear from her womb, she felt great joy. The word Vahase is also significant because it indicates that the ominous vibration condemned Kaṁsa for acting just like a beast of burden by carrying his enemy's mother. Okay, text 35. Iti ukta sakalaha papo bojanam kulapangsanaha Bhaginim hantum arabdham khadga panihi kache agrahit ityukta sakalak papo bojanam kulapangsanaha Bhaginim hantum arabdham Khadgapani kache grahit Ityukta sakalak papo Bhojanam kulapangsanaha Bhaginim hantam arabdham Khadgapani kache grahit Ityukta sakalak papo Bhojanam kulapangsanaha Bhaginim hantam arabdham Khadgapani kache grahit Ityukta sakalak papo Bhojanam kulapangsanaha Bhaginim hantam arabdham Padgapani kache grahit. Well, this is the first mistake that I've seen Aditya make in a verse. It's not arabdha, it's arabdham, according to the book here. So that, when you see that H with the dot under it, pronounce it like an M. Okay. Ityukta sakalak papo Bojanam kulapangsanaha Minghantam arabdham Kadgapani kvike grihi. Tabas, you want to try? Ityukta sakalak papo Bojanam kulapangsanaha Paginim hantan arabdham Kadgapani kache grihit. You want to try it? Ityukta sakalak papo Bojanam kulapangsanaha Paginim hantam arabdham Kadgapani kache grahit. Ladies? Ityukta sakalak papo Bhojanam kulapangsanaha Bhaganim hantam arabdham Kadgapani kache grahit. Anyone online? I guess the weekend. Vanessa's not there. Okay, what are the words? Iti uktaha. Thus being addressed, Sahi, he, Kaṁsa, Kalaha, envious, yeah. Papaha, sinful. Bojanam, of the Bhoja dynasty. Kulapangsanaha, one who can degrade the reputation of his family. Bhaginim, unto his sister. Hantam arabdham, being inclined to kill. Kadgapani, taking a sword in his hand. Kache, hair. Agrahit, took up. In other words, grabbed. Okay. Translation. Kaṁsa was a condemned personality in the Bhoja dynasty because he was envious and sinful. Therefore, upon hearing this omen from the sky, he caught hold of his sister's hair with his left hand and took up his sword with his right hand to sever her head from her body. Purport. Kaṁsa was driving the chariot and controlling the reins with his left hand, but as soon as he heard the omen that his sister's 8th child would kill him, he gave up the reins, caught hold of his sister's hair, and with his right hand took up a sword to kill her. Before, he had been so affectionate that he was acting as his sister's chariot driver. But as soon as he heard that his self-interest or his life was at risk, he forgot all affection for her and immediately became a great enemy. This is the nature of demons. No one should trust a demon despite any amount of affection. Aside from this, a king, a politician, or a woman cannot be trusted, since they can do anything abominable for their personal interest. Chanakya Pandit therefore says, Vishvaso nayavakartavyak strishu raja kuleshicha. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandana salakaya chakshu unmidatam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So I'll have to begin by making a comment on this last penultimate sentence. A king, a politician, or a woman cannot be trusted since they can do anything abominable for their personal interest. Well, Srila Prabhupada showed by his management of his ISKCON that he entrusted some of his leading ladies with very great responsibility. For instance, this is how old I'm getting. Who was that lady who went with Mukunda and Guru Das and Shyamasundar, two ladies? No, the singer. Yamuna. Thank you. Yamuna was entrusted to set the worship standards for the Krishna Balaram temple in Vrindavan when it was finally built and opened in 1975, which is a great responsibility. And similarly, he entrusted, I forget the lady's name, you may not know, but there was another lady who was also a pioneer and the first one who was trained in the details of deity worship. No, before that. And she went, I remember she came to Brooklyn even, when I was there in 74 probably, and to show us the standards of deity worship. So the point is that in general, ordinary ladies can be much more moved by their emotions and so forth, and so they can't be trusted. But devotees, when they take up devotional service and they become really surrendered, they can become very advanced. And in our history, there are many. And in fact, in America, at least half a dozen temples are run by ladies. And there's Vishaka sitting in the manor as the temple president. So when devotional service is involved, then this injunction is not 100% enforced. So what's the scene here now? It's very dramatic that, as the omen said, it's the child. It didn't say the son, although that comes later in that Kaṁsa assumed it was going to be a male. Although what happened was that the first 6, he said, well, you got to kill any of the sons. They could be. So these first 6, and it's explained who they were already cursed to be killed by Kaṁsa, or their father. And so they were later delivered, actually, near the end of the 10th canto. Devaki prayed to Krishna to please Krishna and Balaram, I think, to go and bring back those 6 sons. She missed them, and so they were there. And I think with Mahavishnu, yeah. And so they brought them back. And she was just like a few minutes with them, and then they went off and they went back to Garden. But she was very relieved that happened. So this is setting up, the whole first part of this 10th canto is, of course, Krishna in Vrindavan. Now, how do you get to Vrindavan? Because this is going on in Mathura, right? He's going to take birth in Mathura. That's where Kaṁsa was ruling. And so it was set up that that Yashoda was giving birth to a child, turned out to be a female child, and that female child was Maya Devi personified. Krishna had instructed Maya Devi to take birth from Yashoda, so that's a female child. And then when that took place, Devaki was giving birth to Krishna, and he appears there, a small baby, small baby, not the painting I think was, but it was a small baby as Narayan, with 4 hands and a little conch shell and everything, So they were both amazed, and they offered their prayers to their son, they were overjoyed. But then he told that Vasudeva that you now have to take me to Vrindavan and exchange me for the baby that's just been born to Yashoda, the female baby who he had already instructed that's going to be Maya Devi personified. So that's what happened, and by Krishna's mystic power, all the guards conked out, they fell asleep. And all the locks, I think they had them chained up personally, but they were all opened. And he walked across the river, right? And it was pouring down, and so Sheshanag came to guard them and everything. It was very dramatic. And Yashoda, because of the childbirth, she was tired. It was exhausting, and she wasn't sure whether she gave birth to a male or female child. So Vasudeva carefully, placed Krishna there in the bed with Yashoda, and took the female child and went back to the dungeon. And after he got in, all the locks locked up, and they were locked up again. And then the baby was born, and she was crying. And so the guards all ran in to come. The 8th child is born. That 8th child's born. Okay. Now he runs in there. And he assumed there was going to be a male child. Because how could I be killed by a woman, It's crazy. But he, so he said, even the oracles are lying now, but they didn't lie. They said it was a child. They didn't say what the gender was going to be. So anyway, he did what he did to the previous 6. The 7th child was Balaram, and that was assumed to be a miscarriage, because it was taken from the womb of Devaki to the womb of Rohini, the mystic process, So that they thought there was a miscarriage, and then so there's that now the 8th child. So he takes this little female baby and he's about to dash her on the stone in the dungeon, but she flies up out of his hands and starts berating him. "You fool! The one who's going to kill you is born elsewhere," like that, So it was a shocking thing, But the fact that was born elsewhere, then they were where elsewhere? Well, they don't know. So he orders his, after consulting with his demonic advisors, they say the best idea is to kill all the children born in the last week or so, right? So they go around, it doesn't say a detail about this. I think they started doing that. And then eventually Narada Muni comes and tells Kaṁsa the whole story. He says, "You've been deceived. Krishna's actually born, and he's now in Vrindavan, and he's been there for so many." Oh, okay, so now I know. So he started sending all these demons, and Krishna kills them, beginning with Putana, right? We won't go through all the details, but it's such an incredible thing. And here, all the Brijbasis, they think this is a little boy here. But now, he kills this big demoness who's expanded to 8 miles long when she died, and it was just this horrific thing. So that's the first one. Then the tornado demon came. No, I'm sorry. Then was the cart demon. He was in the cart, and Krishna kicked his mother because he was calling his mother, but she was busy greeting all the guests for the Uttana ceremony. Now, Uttana, as far as I understand, means when the little child, instead of just lying on his back, he finally gets over and he's ready to crawl. And there's a whole festival for that. But it's only for married women who have children. So she was greeting them all. And Krishna was crying, and he kicked his legs, and the whole cart, which is full of big utensils and everything, just crashed down. So what happened to the baby? Is he okay? And miraculously, he wasn't hurt at all. So that just kept happening like that. And so I think at that point she performed all of these ceremonies for his protection. She was very pious, and it's in the Krishna book in the first canto. So many, may this incarnation protect you when you're sleeping, and this incarnation protect you when you're walking. She covers all the bases. So that's a nice pastime. And then what happens is at certain, so time goes on, and maybe weeks pass, and then Krishna suddenly becomes very heavy. She can hardly hold him, so she puts him down on the ground outside the house and keeps going around a bit. And this big tornado demon comes, Trinavarta. Trinavarta means he takes up all the grass, the little grass, and he takes him up into the sky, And she can't see him because of all of she doesn't know where he is, and so she faints, in desperation, very emotional. So Krishna, though this passing was being heavy, so he holds on to his neck of this demon Trinavarta, and he's choking him, and at the same time he's heavy like a mountain. He can't hold him up anymore, so they both crash down to the ground. The demon is killed, and Krishna's just playing on his chest as he usually does. Madhya says, "Oh, I got my child back." So this is what the whole Vrindavan thing is. Kaṁsa keeps sending these demons, and Krishna keeps killing them. And the whole, community of Vrindavan, who is this boy? He maybe is some kind of demigod or something. They don't really know who he is. Meanwhile, he's doing all these other, purely delightful things, like crawling around and then grabbing the tails of the calves, and then the ladies who are churning the butter, they're looking, they're charmed by that. So there's this mixture of this very sweet maternal ras and some paternal that's going on at first. And meanwhile, Krishna, then he grows up, and then this big ceremony when he grows up, he's old enough to take care of the calves, right, to go out with the boys, the calf herds. He's 5 years old. So then first thing is demon comes, and Bakasura, who's not a duck. He's actually, I think Prabhupada may have said baka, because I heard duck, I don't know. But baka is a heron, because he's got a beak, he's got a sharp beak, So I looked it up, it's a beak, it's a heron. So he comes, and he swallows Krishna up, and all the boys, the painting is there, like, my God, they could hardly, believe it. And then a minute later, Krishna, I think he gets very hot in there. I think that's what it is, and then he expels Krishna, and he grabs his beaks and pulls them apart, destroys Bakasura. And then the boys are all chanting about it and glorifying Krishna when they go back, and all the, the mothers are amazed. It's, yes, he's amazing. He must be some kind of demigod or something. So this is what happens in the first few years. It's all very much delightful pastimes with the boys and with the parents and all these different things and the elders, punctuated by killing demons, that Kaṁsa sends. So I won't go through, the Krishna book of pastimes, but that's what we're headed in for here. And of course, at a certain point, Krishna grows older, and he prevails on his father to give up the Indrajagya. We know that pastime especially well here, holding up Govardhan Hill. So this, all of this is going to provide us with great delightful ways of thinking about Krishna, remembering him, making paintings, doing plays, glorifying together. And in this way, as Prahlad says in his immortal prayers to Lord Nrsingadev, Twadviya Gayana Mahamata Magna Chitta, by singing your powerful glories, anywhere I can immerse my mind in an ocean of nectar. So that's the great benediction of this Bhagavatam, is that it contains these stories, and then our great acharyas and writers, Rupa Goswami, Sanatan, Jiva Goswami, Raghunatha, they've all expanded on them, giving more details about these pastimes in the most beautiful language. This verse I gave last time. Let's see if I can think of another one. Well, this is a verse some of you maybe remember. Sukhi Bhakta. Remember Sukhi Bhakta? He was here for a few years, worked with the deities, then he left, but he comes back periodically. So I taught him this verse, and whenever we would see each other, we'd chant it together. It's from the Stavamala, Rupa Goswami's poetry. So he says, what is this? Just beautiful ways of which you can glorify Krishna with the most. That's why he's Uttama Shloka. He's glorified in the best of shlokas, and they provide themselves an audible deity, object of meditation that can fill your mind with the most beautiful sights and sounds of Krishna. So what is this verse says? Urasi padispuradindinamindindinamandada sujolasitam hadamanganate mangala mangala chachandanam bande. And I discovered from this verse this word meaning bees, which is apparently an onomatopoeia, which is that it sounds like what it means. So the bees, they're buzzing, they're making that sound. So he makes this word. I looked up in the dictionary. I think it's actually in there. If not, it'll be added. So what does it mean? It says, upon his chest is manifest the mark of goddess Shri, the goddess of fortune. Upon his chest is manifest the mark of goddess Shri, and there too rests the best of wreaths, a temple for the bees, who worship him by singing hymns that limn his loving play. Now here, it has a kind of stretch for the dictionary. Limn is a word that means to describe. It's not such a word, but it has a great benefit in the poem. Rhymes with hymn, Hymn, which means a song. Back to the beginning. Upon his chest is manifest the mark of goddess Shri, and there to rest the best of reins, a temple for the bees, who worship him by singing hymns that limn his loving play, while Shri Hari most gleefully acclaims the way they pray. For Braja's love-bed milkmaids and for all the Brahmins' wives, Shri Krishna is the ultimate good fortune in their lives. His sandal paste anointed limbs bedim the full moon's glow. Unto the soothing lotus feet of Shri Hari I bow down low. So that's just one verse. And the Bhagavatam is filled with the prayers of the gopis, the songs of the gopis. There's Gopi Geets. There's 4. One is known as Gopi Gita, the most famous one. Did you learn this as a child? Jayatite dikam janmana vrajag. She said, yes. This is a wonderful tradition. I remember it was after the class, and I had to come back in the temple for some reason. And there was only one individual left. There was some gentleman I'd never seen before, and he was singing these prayers. Jayatite dikam. These are the prayers of the gopis when Krishna leaves. He leaves with Radharani. And then finally he also leaves Radharani because she became a little proud, And so after the gopis had begun mad and they were imitating Krishna's pastimes and everything, they found the footprints of Krishna and Radha together. And then after following, they see only one set of footprints. And they said, oh boy, she must have done something where he abandoned her. So, and sure enough, that's what happened. So I won't get into details. But then they all get together and they go to the bank of the Yamuna. And because it's getting dark, the moon is, not where it was in the sky. And so they start singing these wonderful songs. Jayatite dikam janmana vrajak shrayate indira shashvaratrehi dayate dvishyatam dikshutamakos tvahitutasavas tvambichinbate. I'm sorry, I haven't put these into poetry yet. But this is Jayatite dikam, oh my dear Lord, you have taken your birth in this land of Vrindavan, making it so glorious. Janmanavadak Shrayata Indira Shashva, and therefore the goddess of fortune is now residing here. Shrayata Jayatite Dikam Janmanavadak Shrayata Indira Shashvarati Dayata Drishitam Dikshutam, because please, we're looking for you everywhere. Please show yourself to us. You're sustaining our lives. If you don't return, we're going to die, like that. So he goes on like that. And there's the famous verse there which Vaisheshika Prabhu, who knows all these verses, he's a great scholar, he's been studying now for years. His famous Chad program, this was even before Bhakti Chad, that chapter a day, to chant a chapter a day of the Bhagavatam, Tathagat. He has a PDF file that facilitates that, right? If you're interested. I should be interested, more interested. I used to do it. But anyway, so there's a verse there that all the Sankirtan devotees, do you know this one, Dvijamani? Tavakatamritam tapta jivanam kavabiditam kalmashapaham shravanamangalam shrimaratatam bhuvaganantihe buridajana. I really should have put this into an English poem by this time, but I haven't. So they say, the nectar of talks about you, Tavakatamritam tapta jivanam, is the life and soul of all the living entities suffering in this material world. Tapta jivanam. Tapta jivanam, Shravana Mangalam, very auspicious to hear, and Shri Maratatam, and filled with spiritual power. Kavabididitam kalmashapaham. That's actually the second line. Kavabididitam, which is sung by the great kavis, the devotional poets. And kalmashapaham, and destroys all the evils of conditioned life. Kalmashapaham. Shravana Mangalam Shrimadatatam, the very auspicious to hear, filled with spiritual power, certainly Puvigunantihe Buridajana, that those who are spreading your glories in this world are the most munificent welfare workers. There we have one professional munificent welfare worker, but everyone is at one point or another, distributed some books. So, and it's essential to Prabhupada's, Prabhupada likes to recount that pastime. He was with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in Vrindavan, I think at Radhakund. He had his son with him, right? And it was there that Bhaktisiddhanta told him, if you ever get money, print books, which Prabhupada took his life and soul. And when he finally got money, he came to America with 7 rupees in his pocket. But when he finally was able to, his sincere disciples working and also distributing BTG, and there was money, to print books, to set up the press. He didn't have another press. He set up the press in Boston. And there's a wonderful new book out by Giriraj Swami called Finding My Spiritual Master. And he's mentioned some of these things in his other books, but this is all focused on that. And the early days of the Boston Temple. At one point, this Boston Temple was the main temple in ISKCON. It was that most populous before LA became established and everything. So we're talking, 1970 or even earlier, 68, 69, when things were really getting going in England with that whole pastime. But Satsarup Maharaj was there, and then he set up the press. All the painters came. There were maybe a dozen of them max at that time, And but they needed a bigger place because Prabhupada wanted to actually put a printing press in there, not that you send it off to print somewhere else, but to actually print the book. So they got a new building, and there was a whole adventure about that where there was some gangs who didn't want them around, and they attacked the temple and everything. But everyone was safe, and they started printing the books there. And what books did they print? I don't know. Maybe the abridged Bhagavad Gita was first printed there. Certainly, Back to Godhead was printed there. That was the main distribution at first. It would go out with Back to God, and Giriraj was going out. Giriraj Das Brahmachari, he's going out with the BTGs. And anyway, it's a wonderful, wonderful story, and I especially liked it because that whole press and all those devotees eventually relocated to Brooklyn, because there they not only had a temple building which housed the deities and the devotees and everything, the kitchen, but they were able to rent at a reasonable price a separate building, which was a block away from the temple, where they established the press and the storage place for the books that were printed. That was all there. And upstairs you had production. That's where I worked. There was a proofreader. I was surprised to see, we're getting BTGs sent free, and people they can take them home. And the idea is to stimulate people to try to subscribe, because they're having a little trouble. But sometimes they send old ones, or they appear there. There was one from the early 70s. That's 50s. When I first became a proofreader, actually in LA, in 75, I think it was. And I said, well, I recognize that one, number 17 or something, whatever it was. And sure enough, I looked in the list, and there was my little name, as the proofreader, Dravida Dasa. It's quite a history. So all of this, it's so enlivening. Just like Parikit was so eager, says, "Oh, Nivata again now, please, speak about the wonderful pastimes of Krishna, all attractive Krishna." We finally got to the summum bonum, the smiling face of the Lord, And it's interesting that Prabhupada, he gave that to the devotees in the form of Krishna book. He stopped doing the word by words in the third canto, wherever it was, in 1970, and he dedicated all his translating time to the summary study of the Krishna book. It's not as formal, but it's got. And why did he do that? Because here's the devotees, they're going out, they're chanting everything, and they've got the TLC, which is the teaching of Lord Chaitanya, and they've got the Bhagavad Gita, but they don't really have the details of Krishna's pastimes. And so he very mercifully, spoke that Krishna book. And I had a great opportunity after 20 years. That came out in early 70s. So in the early 90s, I was given the responsibility to go through the Krishna book. And unlike any other book, we have the majority of the actual transcription tapes for the Krishna book. And in in the Veda base, you'll find the transcriptions given for these Krishna book, and so many other tapes are given, but those are also given. And they proved invaluable for going through, because the early editors, it wasn't just Hayagriva, he did some work on there, but I think he was more involved in the Bhagavatam at the time. But anyway, the editors were like not so experienced, to say the least, you know. They left out things like a good section of Akrura's prayers for some reason. I don't know why. I had to do a big section of that. And there were various other little anomalies and things that I had to fix. And we had those original tapes, or the transcriptions that I could listen to. Actually, what happened was that it was put out by Harikesh Swami. It was one of the first English books that he printed. He was very famous for printing books in all of these languages. But what happened was that the leader of the UK, where a lot of English books were being sold, he left, and so he took that over, and so he had that, and so he was now printing some English books in English. So he invited me to come all the way to Sweden to set up in a place called Korsnäs Gård, which he had established as the place where all the translators could come and have great facility for work. So I spent at least a month or 6 weeks there in the summer of '94. And someone had gone through the whole Krishna book, listening to those tapes and reading the book. And when she found some anomaly, she would make a note of it. She said, well, the Prabhupada said this, but the book says this. And so that was a great source of finding errors that needed to be fixed. Anyway, it's a great gift, and we should take advantage of that Krishna book, because we have the pastimes of Krishna, the beautiful paintings that decorate the book, windows to the spiritual world. And that's, after all, where we want to go. We want to go back to Godhead, where Krishna is actually, living in Goloka Vrindavan. And we know, I think we read recently, and it's reiterated in the CC, that really, if we're successful in our endeavor to become fully Krishna conscious, we will go to that universe, that planet in that universe where Krishna is taking birth, we'll be contemporaries with it, and we'll be further trained in our particular service to Krishna. And when we're more expert, then we'll go back to Goloka Vrindavan. But that'll be a great adventure. But Prabhupada has given us all the facility. He translated his Bhagavatam, and he inspired his followers to take up the task when he couldn't complete. He finished 13 chapters in the 10th canto. So I got to work on 77 chapters of the 10th canto. So if there's any mistake in the editing, it's mine. You can correct it and we'll fix it. All right, it's 8:33. Any discussion on these points? Sorry, it wasn't so philosophical. It was more just thinking of what's in store for us now. Meditation on it. It takes how long was it? I think Balaram can tell us. We were in the 10th canto when he came. Which was let's see, within the 2000. No, I think it was in the 90s, in the mid 90s or something. About 30 years ago. It takes a while to get back to the 10th canto. But we'll be here for a long time. And then when you get to chapter 87, those who read the Krishna book said, well, this chapter is about 10 times longer than any other chapter. There's all kinds of commentaries. It's full of the prayers of the personified Vedas. And the verses are very long. And I remember, I'll end with this because it's... And so that the meter is quite remarkable. And I was curious if Bilva Mangal Thakur had written any verses in that meter. And I won't go into it, but I have a big archive in my apartment. I have 4 bookshelves. They're all overflowing in books. And when I was in Philadelphia, I was able to go into the library there because Rabindra Swarup had a card he loaned me. And they had other writings of Bilva Mangal Thakur. And so I copied them. There's all photocopies in those days. And there's this one verse that was in that meter. So I'll share that with you. You can see, the art of Bilva Mangal Thakur. And it'll be very hard to fit them on this board. Believe me, Aditya is going to have a job every day. So here's how the meter, and I'll give you the meaning to this, then we'll end. Drutatapani yadum adavilobidakula baham vidachita chandaka badanama badanam jagatam mamadishamam mudeti mudidana nabimba maho kimapi kishora dhamma madodam madodam madodam. Most of you could understand the end of the verse. It's so sweet, sweet, sweet. So what he says is, Druta Tapani, and I learned from this verse that there's a very special gold that's highly refined, more than ordinary gold. And so when that gold is molten, it shines even more than regular gold. So that gold is obviously very proud of its shine, right? So that's the whole idea. That Krishna is wearing these glistening silken garments. It's not silk that's produced by killing these poor silkworms, but it's silken. I looked this up. There's a certain plant that they can make out of it, and it's just like silk. So silken. So Krishna's silken golden garments are giving off an effulgence that's putting to shame, that destroys the pride of this molten gold. Jutatapani durmana vilopi, killing the pride. Vilopi the durmana. Jutatapani durmana vilopi dukulavaham, his dhoti and so forth. Vidachita chandaka abadanam, he himself has fashioned a most extraordinary helmet of peacock plumes, an ornament, ornamental crown. He's fashioned that. Vidachita chandaka abadanam jagatam, but he himself is the ornament for the entire universe. This word abadanam is used in twice. And then it says, abadanam jagatam, mama drisham abhyuteti. He's come before my eyes. Now he's always talking about how he's seeing Krishna and everything, but he doesn't really, he can't see. I won't get into that story, it's a little gruesome, but he's blind. But he's seeing Krishna with his spiritual eyes at every moment. So that's what he means. He's come before my eyes. Mama dishamabhyuteti mudidana nabimba maho. How wonderful it is with his beautiful full moon-like face. That's so enchanting, And it says kimapi. Now this is kimapi. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that can act as an idiom in Sanskrit. It means it's ineffable. It's beyond my words to be able to say. Kimapi is like anyway. That's sometimes I see it in other verses. Kimapi kishora dhamma madoram madoram madoram. Now the last three words I think you understand. Sweet, sweet, sweet. But here we say kimapi kishora dhamma. This adolescent aspect of Krishna, his beauty, is sweet, 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 beyond the ability of my words to describe. It's indescribable. So that's just one verse in that meter, which I'm sure would be difficult to write on the board. But we'll get there eventually. Chapter 87. It'll be a few years. Go through all these chapters. But it'll definitely be worth it. All right, if there's no comment or question, anyone online? No? Nobody on the Zoom?
I have a comment. Some comments.
Go ahead.
It's so important to hear Krishna's pastimes, and it's just so unfortunate how people, I think of my friends, I don't even know if I could call them friends, but people that I grew up with demoniac natures. I've been telling them about the philosophy of Krishna consciousness for years and years, but as soon as you bring up a pastime, it's like so hard for these materialistic people to find pleasure in hearing them.
Yeah.
You hear a cart demon, just that one word, and they're just like, what are you talking about? But for the devotees, it's nectar.
Yeah, it's really, of course, Krishna book was distributed very widely to anybody, There's a pastime behind that, which I won't get into now. Anyway, this one devotee was standing in front of Macy's in New York, which at that time was one of the biggest department stores. I think they went out of business now. But he had boxes of the Krishna trilogy, which we know, big books, but they printed it in small, soft books. And it was Christmas time, and he was dressed as Santa. He was pretty portly to begin with. I don't even know if he needed to put in a pillow there. When I went out as Santa, I didn't need to put a pillow in. And he sold literally hundreds of those sets of Krishna books. But of course, the point is, you're right. If the ordinary person reads this, and what is this? This is impossible. This is so it's really not intended for non-devotees. These kind of pastimes. What to speak of the rasa dance, which is obviously not. But even as you say, it seems unbelievable. It seems fantastic, and they're not going to, and they'll make an offense, just like it's an offense to glorify the holy name to the faithless. So I would say that you can sell anyone a Krishna book, but to try to get them into the Leela, those who are atheists or offenders, it's an offense. So that's especially, but as you point out, it's especially for devotees. And we shouldn't neglect that. I remember, I don't know when this was, this goes back 30 some odd years in LA. Amala Bhakta has been there since the mid-70s. He has an apartment there and he's lived there. And of course he's a sannyasi now, he wasn't then for a long time. But he would read Krishna book while the devotees were taking prasadam. At that time they took prasadam in the temple, they would close the curtains and they served everyone out. And he was always reading there, Now you would say, well, but they didn't have a chance to converse and everything. Well, anyway, it was approved by the temple authorities, and it was a wonderful experience. And it's actually there in the tradition. Sharira Vijayal, that we don't sing anymore. But in that prayer by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it says, let us take the prasadam while hearing the glorification of the Lord. There's something about hearing during that time. And so he took that up, and for years he was doing that, and he was very enlivened by it, and so was everyone else. So it's meant for the devotees, and we should try. I mean, and it was a tradition. I mean, everyone gathered at the end of the day in Brooklyn. We went downstairs where they had the prasadam hall, and there was hot milk, sweetened hot milk, and someone was always reading Krishna book. And the point, the Prabhupada said, yes, and hopefully you dream about Krishna. So, but yeah, we should take advantage of our devotee association and share these things. And I'll end with this one little vignette also. There was this one devotee, and I forget his name now, but he would carry a little bag, and in the bag was a nectar of devotion. And when he saw someone, he's a brahmachari, so he would say, hey, Prabhu, you want to hear something amazing, And he would open that nectar of devotion and read something out of it, which is also full of leela and all kinds of, varieties of very sweet things, sweet pastimes and everything. And that's really, what Prabhupada hoped that we would do, that we would fill our minds, fill our ears with this qualification and become attracted to associate with devotees on that basis. That's really the great value. It's Satam Prasangan Mama Virya Sambido. It's right there in the teaching of Lord Kapila Dev. And I'll end with this verse, which you should all know. Satam Prasangan Mama Virya Sambido Bhavanti Rit Khan Rasayana Katad Tadjoshanat Ashu Apavargavatmani Shraddha Ratir Bhaktir Anukramishati. So the word prasanga is very important. Pra is a prefix that intensifies. And so you had sangha, but prasanga. Prasanga means very meaningful association. You're not just hanging out with somebody, when your mind is elsewhere, but you're ardently hearing and taking it in and if possible participating and giving your own, so this prasangan mama virya sambido. So association with advanced devotees, absorbed devotees, what you'll do is, what you will get in that association is descriptions of my powerful activity. Mama virya samvido. Samvido is like conversation, which is bhavanti rit karna rasayana kata, which is like a life-giving elixir for the ears and the heart. Bhavanti rit karna rasayana kata. And tadjoshanad, this process, tadjoshanad ashu, quickly, apavargavartmani, the path of liberation. This will give you liberation and much more, but that's the path of it. Develop the Shraddha, Ratir, Bhakti, Anukramishati. Step by step, you deepen your faith, you deepen your attraction for Krishna, and your bhakti, your love for God is nourished by that process. And you just read the Chaitanya Chariot, it's just full of that. Especially the Anti-Leela, that's all that was going on. Lord Chaitanya was hearing, Srup Damodar and Ramananda Roy were chanting, sometimes their own compositions. And Lord Chaitanya was just absorbed, and would go into these states of ecstasy. Of course, in tons of Harinam Kirtan going on, which is the essence of hearing and chanting. I chant, you hear; you chant, I hear. That's what it is. And we both dance and fall down in ecstasy. So let's take advantage of this. This is these first 13 chapters were Prabhupada's final contribution to Bhagavatam, and they're full of the sweetest nectar. All glories to the Prabhupada. Thank you for your attention.